hold your time. Let me welcome our colleagues, and let me begin with Representative Carolyn Maloney from New York, the sponsor of the legislation, for her comments regarding H.R. 980.
I thank you very much, Chairman Grijalva, for holding this hearing and for being one of the lead sponsors of the legislation. And I thank our Ranking Member Bishop, members of the subcommittee. I thank all of you for allowing me to testify today about H.R. 980, the Northern Rockies Ecosystem Protection Act. And I particularly thank the chairman for being the absolute lead co-sponsor of NREPA. So far in this Congress, NREPA has gained the support of 75 bipartisan co-sponsors from over 30 states. It has grassroots support that is deep and strong in the areas affected by the legislation. It is supported by the Natural Resources Defense Council, the Sierra Club, Alliance for the Wild Rockies, Friends of the Clearwater, the Endangered Species Coalition, the Humane Society, and over the years, literally hundreds and hundreds of other organizations and local businesses in Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. And I'd like to submit to the record these support letters. NREPA differs from traditional state-by-state wilderness bills by offering a variety of designations that work in concert to achieve one goal: the protection of an entire functioning ecosystem. It is a bill focused on sound science, not on arbitrary political boundaries. After all, watersheds don't stay within one congressional district, animals don't know when they've crossed a political boundary, and forests span millions of miles with no regard for state lines. Mr. Chairman, I know that there will be a healthy discussion on the bill this afternoon, and I want to start out by talking generally about what the bill does and what it does not do. I am pleased that later you'll hear testimony from experts from the region, some of whom have been working on this bill for longer than I have. At its core, NREPA does three simple things. It protects, it employs, and it saves. NREPA protects. It protects entire functioning ecosystems by designating 24 million acres of America's premier roadless lands as wilderness. It also protects the rivers and streams that are the last habitats for many of America's wild trout stocks by designating some 1,800 miles of rivers and streams as wild and scenic rivers. Most importantly, by protecting natural biological corridors, NREPA links all these wild places together into a functioning ecological whole. It also employs. The bill will create about 2,300 good-paying jobs to restore over 1 million acres of damaged habitat and watershed. In trying economic times, green jobs like these are tremendously important. Finally, NREPA saves. It saves taxpayers money by eliminating wasteful subsidies to the timber industry to conduct logging on federal lands. These forests are money losers, and ultimately the American taxpayers are paying to continue logging in these particular federal forests. NREPA saves taxpayers money by prohibiting road building and logging in the areas designated as wilderness. I want to be very clear about what NREPA does not do. It does not impact private landowners. It impacts only public lands, lands owned by all Americans. We all have a right and a responsibility to protect our precious resources. Now, you'll hear some people say that NREPA is not an appropriate bill, and my good friend Mr. Hastings said that no one from the area is sponsoring this. But I will tell you that there is no idea that is not worthy of being debated in this Congress, and certainly one that has such a strong number of co-signers and supporters of it. In the prior Congress, we had over 150. And many of the people came from the region. When I first was elected, many people, I came from these states, Montana, Utah, Wyoming, and they came to my office and said they had this important bill that they had been working on for years, and they could not find a co-sponsor. And part of those lands belong to me and every other American, and I certainly believe that every bill has the right to be debated and discussed and should be introduced, particularly one that has earned the support of over 75 of my colleagues in a bipartisan way. This bill is a homegrown grassroots bill that by necessity had to go elsewhere for a sponsor. And I will tell you a story, if I could, Mr. Chairman, because the day it was really very near the Westway project. We had a project in New York that the governor, the mayor, everybody supported it. And they wanted to build this new highway and build out over the water, and there were a group of environmentalists. There were about 10 of us. We opposed it. We had certain grounds. We opposed this bill, and after roughly 10 years, it finally came down from the Army Corps of Engineers and the courts that it was illegal, wasteful, should not be built. So I would say that you can't say no to something because you don't like the sponsor of it, or you think the sponsor should be from a different state. All of us have the right to introduce legislation, and it's been a great success that Westway, that particular environmental project, was saved for the habitat and for the fish in the water and so forth. But I will continue to debate this issue in a thoughtful and responsible way. If nothing else, the American people should take comfort in the fact that we continue to debate how much land to protect instead of whether to protect land at all. Some years ago, 2 NREPA supporters from Manhattan, Montana, wrote to me and said, and I quote, "We feel that there is a little ray of hope for the incredible but dwindling wild lands we are so lucky to live near and love. All of us have a responsibility to sustain that hope." I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I hope that the chairman will support it and move it towards a markup. I yield back the balance of my time.